Actually, before we start, just very quick, if you haven't had a chance yet to see the 10 really dumb mistakes that very smart couples make, I highly recommend the book, because even though the course we're going to Mitzvah Hashem, go through the basics of a relationship, the basics of what a marriage needs, I highly recommend the book, because if you get a chance to read the book, it'll give you a much better sense of what a marriage needs, what's involved. If you're unable to read, which I certainly understand in our current days, I dealt with that problem as well, and we have the video book. It's the 10 really dumb mistakes. I took the essence of the book and I distilled it into 53 4-minute videos, and it's really cute. You open the book up and it plays the videos. You just look at it and there it goes. It just it plays.
Some very smart couples doing some
very dumb things.
And hopefully we learn how to avoid the 10 really dumb mistakes that very smart couples make.
I love it. I happen to love this. So if you're illiterate, which means you're 30 or younger, I hate to say it that way, but that means likely you're illiterate, you can get the video book. Both available on theshmooze.com, THESHMUZ.com, theshmooze.com. Please avail yourself of that. You can get them both there, both the book as well as the video book, as well as an audio book, as an ebook, whichever which way you like it, we take care of it there. All right, good. Let us begin. Okay, so I don't know if you've noticed the screen, but you'll see the screen says Matzah esha motze tov, motze animar motze esha. The name of our chabura is Matzah or motze, and I'd like to explain to you the reason for the name. The name of the chabura is because Shlomo Melech was the wisest of all men, and Shlomo Melech told us the definition. He gave us definitions. He says Matzah esha motze tov. You find a woman, find a wife, you found good. There's good in your life. It's wonderful. Life is beautiful. However, Shlomo Melech also told us something else. He also said, Umotzi ani mar mi moves esha esha. I find the woman more bitter than death. And this really is that sort of dichotomy that many people find themselves in. It's matzah or motze. More bitter than death, or a man who finds his good wife good. And as a matter of fact, this is not a joke, but this is a chazal. It's a Gemara in Yavamis. The Marava in Eretz Yisrael, when a man would get married, Amrilei, they would say to him, Matzah o motzi. Did you find a Matzah, meaning one who's good, one who's wonderful, or motzi, or is it bitter, more bitter than death? And folks, the reason why I have named this chabura, this title, is because I have dealt with hundreds and hundreds of couples. On a regular basis, I get a man, a woman in front of me, and I cannot tell you how many times I say to my wife afterwards, it's a match made in heaven. The mamish peas in the pod, too, a perfect fit, but they're living in Gehenna. And it's not because Hashem forgot how to make matches, and it's not because they're mismatched in any sense or any way, and not that either of them have some obnoxious behavior, just they don't understand the mechanics of marriage. They don't understand what a marriage needs. They don't understand relationship needs. They don't understand gender differences. And the reason why I named this chabura Matzah or motze is because often it's your choice. And gentlemen, I have to be very candid. It is much more within the man's control. I cannot tell you how many times I'll get a couple in front of me, him and her, and I'll say to him, how's your marriage? Good, Baruch Hashem. I'll say to her, how's the marriage? It's terrible, it's horrible. Wait, you guys married like to each other? And the reason for that is because at the core of a woman's essence, she thrives on the relationship. She needs the relationship. She craves the relationship. And if a woman doesn't feel that she's fundamentally happy in her marriage, she will be miserable. And by definition, you as her husband will share in that fate. So my recommendation is pay careful attention. Pay careful attention, because so many times it's your choice. And the man much more than the woman. Don't get me wrong, women do a lot of things that make it difficult for their husbands to be married to them. But oftentimes the husband is so in control, and so many times little things that you do can make such a huge difference. And that is what we're going to focus on this evening, or at least we'll begin. So let me begin the following. I believe that there are 3 pillars to a successful marriage. The first pillar is commitment, the second pillar is love, and the third pillar is learning to live together. The first pillar, commitment, comes from knowing that Hashem knows exactly what He's doing. Hashem doesn't make mistakes. Hashem said, you and you are the perfect match. And the basis of that commitment is knowing that Hashem loves me more than I love me, and Hashem knows better than I what's for my best. When you understand that, and you understand that Hashem has chosen the correct one for you, she may not seem ideal at this moment. It may take an adjustment. There may be times where things don't go as well as you like, but if you understand that Hashem has chosen the perfect match for you, that Hashem knows far better than you what you need, and Hashem loves you more than you love you, you're committed to the union, you're committed to the marriage, and you do what it takes to make the marriage work. And the very first pillar of a successful marriage is commitment. The second pillar is love. Love is the glue. Love is the essence of the marriage. Without love in your marriage, forget about it. Some guys can be okay if they don't have a great love relationship in their marriage, but women, forget it. Just don't even go there. It's over. You will be toast. So the second pillar is love. However, here's the great difficulty. There are many, many couples who are very committed to the marriage. And they'll even have kids, and they're very committed to their family and their kids. And they even love each other. But it's the third pillar that gives them a lot of trouble, the learning to live together. This evening, we're not going to deal with that one as much, because in the future sessions, we'll get into that. And today, we're going to focus more on the love part of it, because that's the essence of a husband's responsibility. And really, that's the key to a husband's making his wife happy and thereby being happy. But to do this, really, let me begin with a question. Here's the question, and I don't mean it to be funny. If you're married already, you may know the answer, but if you're not married, I doubt you're going to answer this correctly. I should have put it up as a poll. If I was faster or sharper, I would have done polls. I don't have polls. But anyway, here we go. The question is, will you and your wife fight? Right? Let's say you're not married yet. Again, if you're married, I think you know the answer to that. But if you're not married, will you and your wife fight? Okay, now, everyone knows, if you're not married, that marriage is easy. And you found the right one, you're engaged, she's great, you're happy, everything's wonderful. The relationship will be beautiful, life is going to be perfect. And listen, I cannot tell you how many times I'll speak to a chassan, I'll speak to a kala, and they'll say this, we're two mature people, we're grounded, we made up, we're not going to fight. That's it. We are not going to fight. It's a decision we made, we're not going to fight. And then something interesting happens, they get married. And suddenly, it's not only that they fight, but why in the world can't we get along? What's wrong? What is the problem? Did Hashem make a mistake? Am I the problem? Is she the problem? What is the issue? So here we go. Gentlemen, because this is for men only and there are no ladies on this call, I want to share with you a reality check. Usually I can't do this with women in the audience because it gets a little too scary. But reality flash number one. Again, if you're not engaged, this is reality flash. If you are married, if you're engaged but not married, this is a reality flash. If you're married, you probably know it already. But reality flash number one is you will fight. I'm sorry to tell you that in the best of marriages, in the perfect marriages, you will fight. That's just inevitable. It's just part of the landscape, part of the reality. The key is learning how to avoid the fights. When fights do come up, how to limit the damage, and ultimately how to repair the rift, how to repair the damage. But I'm sorry to share with you, the simple reality is that you will fight. Doesn't mean every single couple, I don't know, every single, but 80%, 85%, maybe 90%. It is very, very rare that you have couples, especially in the beginning, that don't have issues that get under each other's skins, and before you know it, flash points, and before you know it, things are bitter. But that doesn't mean a thing. I've dealt again with hundreds and hundreds of couples, and many times it's the couples who don't fight that really scare me, because they're so distant. They've created such divisions between them that they're living in different universes, and it's only a little while until who knows what. The fact that a couple will fight isn't the end of the world. It means that there are things to work on, there are sensitivities, there are vulnerabilities, there are things that you didn't understand about her, she didn't understand about you, you said, he said, she said, before you know it, things got out of control. And again, that does not determine the success of your marriage. The success of your marriage is based on the relationship. When fights do come up, you try to limit the damage, and we'll discuss how to limit it, and more than anything, how to repair the damage. But reality check number one is, unfortunately, you will fight. But gentlemen, because there are no women on this call, I hope, let us do reality flash number two. Reality flash number two is that the person who will hurt you more deeply than you've ever been hurt before is your spouse. Worse than that, the person who will make you angrier than you've ever been before in your life is your spouse. And I'm sorry to say this third part, but there's a truth to this. The person who you will likely hate more than you've ever hated any human being in your life is your spouse. But here is the punchline. That doesn't mean you can't or don't already have a very good marriage. You see, there's just a certain reality to marriage. Marriage is the single closest relationship of any two human beings in existence. There is no relationship that comes within miles and miles of the closeness, the attachment, the bond between husband and wife. In fact, I'll share with you a chazal that you have to really, really understand. Chazal tell us, Ein isha mesa ella labayla. You go to a shiva call, Rahman al-Tzlan, and you see 7 orphans, 7 Yisomim, little kids, and it's a tragedy, a horrible, horrific tragedy, and the tears, it's heart-wrenching. No one understands Chazal, the real ovel is the husband, because the children lost a mother. How could replace a mother? Who could think of what I owe my mother, what everyone owes their mother? It's beyond words. But the simple reality is the attachment, the bond, the connection between husband and wife is far closer. And because it is the most nurturing, supportive, close relationship in existence, when two human beings are that emotionally connected, they're also extremely vulnerable. You see, because of the closeness of the relationship, the hurt penetrates so much more deeply. And the simple reality is, as much as you're going to try, and I'm assuming you're a very nice guy, and I'm assuming you're either engaged to or married to a very nice woman, there's just a simple reality. We all have expectations, needs, and sensitivities, and they're very real. And it can't help but be, in the heavy traffic of life, I didn't realize it, I didn't think it meant anything, I didn't realize, I didn't mean it, but before you know it, I said something or did something or didn't do something or didn't say something, and before you know it, I deeply, deeply hurt the person who I'm closest to. But you see, it's not just that we have very real needs, expectations, and sensitivities. And it's not just that it's only my spouse who can meet them. Do you know who hurt me? Do you know who stabbed me? It's my closest friend, my beloved, the one who I love, the one who I care for, the one who is the most important person in the world to me. And she did that, my best friend and lover. And the simple reality is that there is no human being on the planet who will hurt you as much as your spouse. But again, that's just part of the course of life. You work as much as you can on avoiding those things. You learn the sensitivities, you learn the needs, you become a student of the nature of your spouse. You keep your eyes and ears open and you try to be as careful and as sensitive as possible. But again, it's inevitable. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to say things, do things. And more than anything, you have to understand, you're not going to know. I guarantee, if you're not married, or if you're married a year, if you're married 10 years, you're married 20 years, 30 or 40 years, I guarantee there are many, many things that you will not have a clue. You'll not even be able to envision or imagine that it would. I didn't have the faintest idea that this would bother you. In my wildest dreams, I never meant it. But do you understand why? Because you're dealing with another human being. And any two human beings are vastly different, but especially men and women. Men and women are from different planets, different galaxies, different emotions, different needs, different sensitivities, different temperaments, different natures, different inclinations, different interests. And there is no way in the world that you will know your spouse's needs. There's no way in the world that you'll know your spouse's sensitivities, and there's no way in the world that you're going to know her vulnerabilities. It's a learning process. And along the way, unfortunately, during that learning process, things happen, things are said, and again, that's just part of the landscape of life. You got to roll with the punches, you got to go on. If you're the one who's hurt, as much as possible, you have to recognize it wasn't intended, it wasn't meant. There's no way she meant. I always ask men or women the following question: do you think he came home tonight intending to stab you in the heart? Do you think he thought about this long and hard? How can I say the most damaging, hurtful words that could ever destroy her? I sure don't think so. So why did he do it? And the reason is because he didn't realize. And when you recognize that the vast majority of the hurtful words or insensitivities are just because I didn't realize, number one, it becomes a lot easier on the receiving end to forgive. And number two, if you're on the dishing out end, it's a lot easier to ask Mechila, to repair the rift, and we'll get involved in later on in exactly the process. But for right now, let's take it as a given. It's just part of the landscape. But here is the key. The better the relationship, the more love in your marriage, the more likely that you're going to be sensitive, and more likely that if you do slip up, it'll be forgiven, and the more likely that you and your spouse are going to have a beautiful marriage. But this is the very first thing that I want to focus on this evening, and that is the love in the marriage. Because again, gentlemen, this one is on you. When I speak to women, there's a lot that I tell them they have to work on. But for men, this is the key. It is your responsibility, and we're going to get involved in that now. Now, to do that, let me begin with the following observation. Parshat Vayera opens up. Avram Avinu is sitting at the edge of a tent. He lifts up his eyes, and on the horizon he sees three wayfarers. For all he knows, they're Arab travelers. He doesn't know who they are. He runs out full speed to greet them, bows down full face in the sand. Al natavo me'eldonai, please do not pass your master. He welcomes them in. He prepares a lavish meal, prepares drink. He stands over them like a waiter. Okay. At a certain point, one of these malachim say to Avram, Ayeh Sarah ishtecha, where is Sarah, your wife? Now, if you think about it, that doesn't sound very polite. Here the man welcomes you in, and prepares food, prepares beverage, stands over you like a waiter, and you start asking about his wife. It sounds almost improper. It sounds like a lack of tznius. Why did they ask that question? So Rashi says, Malachei Ashoris hayu. These were the highest level of malachim. Yodim hayu, they knew exactly where Sarah Imenu was. Why then did they ask Ayeh Sarah Ishtecha? Because they knew that Avram would answer, Hinehi ba'oel. She's in the tent. She's a modest woman. She's not out in the limelight. She's not out in the public eye. By saying those words, Avram would have a greater appreciation of her modesty, to make her more beloved in his eyes. They asked the question so he should respond, so he should have a greater appreciation, so that he should love her even more. Okay, now that's an interesting Rashi, but I'd like to ask what I consider the obvious question on this Rashi. And that is, what is the biggest obstacle to a successful marriage? If I were to ask you now, married or not married, what is the single biggest obstacle to a successful marriage? So I think most people would agree being self-centered. When the world begins and ends in my Dalet Amos, when I am the center of the universe, I am a difficult person to be married to. But here's the problem with this Chazal. Avram Avinu was the most other-centered human being you could ever imagine. Sarah Imenu was his parallel. Two utter complete tzaddikim, totally devoted to the other, and totally concerned with the greatest sensitivity. You can't envision or imagine the love between them. And if you don't want to take my word on it, the Marsha says in the course of history, there was never a bond between husband and wife as there was between Avram and Sarah. The greatest connection, the greatest bond, the greatest love between any two human beings, between any husband and wife. So here's the question. Why did the Malachim feel they had to overstep their bounds, ask a question that might not be tznius, to make her more beloved in his eyes? They were on 99.9% level of perfection, the greatest level of bond of connection of any two human beings. Why did the Malachim feel they had to add more love to that marriage? That's question number one. But if this doesn't trouble you, let's follow the storyline a little bit more. A moment or two later, one of the Malachim say, next year, this time, your wife will have a child. Okay? Sarah Imenu is on the other side of the Ohel. She overhears the conversation. Vatischak Sarah bekir b'lema. Sarah laughs inside, saying, I physically can have children. Vadoni zokin, and my husband is too old. How could this be? How could it be that I'm going to have a child? My husband is too old. Okay. Now, when Hashem complains to Avram, Hashem says, why did Sarah laugh, saying that she is too old? Hashem says to Avram, why did Sarah laugh, saying that she is too old? Now Rashi is bothered by the problem. That's not what Sarah Imenu said. Sarah Imenu said that he is too old. Yet when Hashem said the story back to Avram, Hashem says, Avram, why did Sarah laugh, saying that she is too old? So Rashi picks up on this, and Rashi explains, Shina Kosev. Shina Kosev means a polite way of saying Hashem lied. Hashem changed the truth. He allowed to lie for shalom bias. And Shina Kasav, Hashem changed because Hashem didn't want there to be these words to be heard. Meaning, Hashem was afraid that Avram Avinu would hear Sarah saying that he is too old. It might be taken as a slight, it might mar the Shalom bias, and therefore Shina Kasav, Hashem changed and said, Sarah said that she is too old. I heard my Rebbe, the Shiva Zatzal, Rabbi Leibowitz, ask the question on this Rashi, when do we say you could lie for Shalom bias? Lying is not such a simple thing. Chazal tell us there's a heter called lying for Shalom bias when it's going to lead to a very serious issue. If there's going to be strife, there's going to be machlokas, a real problem, you're allowed to lie. That's the halacha. But I want you to imagine for a minute the following. Let's say Hashem didn't change. Let's say Hashem told Avram, why did Sarah laugh, saying that you, Avram, are too old? What would have happened to Avram? Sarah called me an old man. I don't think it would have gone to pieces. He didn't grow up in a juvenile-centered culture. Every year of Avram Avinu's life was a greater accomplishment. Every moment that he lived was another jewel in his crown. He was, by the way, 99. He had another 76 years to go. He wasn't decrepit. Had he heard the words that Sarah said he's too old, I don't think it would have gone to pieces. So my Rebbe, the Shiva Zatzal, asked, so why then did Hashem change? Question number one is, why did Malachim feel they had to make her more beloved in his eyes? Question number two is, why did Hashem have to change? Why did Hashem Shana, not allowing Avram to hear the words that Sarah said that he is too old? Okay, so let's see if we can answer these two Rashis. And to answer this, we have to focus on a very critical question. And this one, again, I wish I had a poll here, and you could ask your friends this one after. But here's the question. What is the biggest cause of divorce today? What is the leading cause of divorce today? And usually when I do this live, I ask people to give me answers, and I usually get all kinds of answers. Okay, it's religion, it's children, it's in-laws, money. So if you take a long list of all of these issues, religion, children, money, in-laws, I'd like to share with you, none of them are the leading cause of divorce today. There is only one leading cause of divorce today, and that is something called fighting. Fighting. Yeah, but Rabbi, come on, it's the money and the in-laws and the children they're fighting about, right? It's not true. See, it's never the religion, never the children, never the money, never the in-laws, and I'll prove it to you. Studies show that 70% of successful marriages have at least one irreconcilable difference. Now, an irreconcilable difference means a difference that can't be reconciled. I'll explain to you what I mean. Imagine he has a successful business in Manhattan, and she has severe allergies. She needs to live in San Diego. Chicago doesn't cut her for either one. He wants to bring the kids up in a Hasidic way. She wants to bring them up in a Litvish way. You can't send the kids to yeshiva with long curly payas on one side. An irreconcilable difference means there is no reconciliation. 70% of marriages have at least one or maybe more irreconcilable difference. And yet they're successful. Why? Because as long as the relationship is intact, as long as there's love, there's friendship, there's respect in the marriage, my way, your way, we find a way. But the minute the love starts to wane, very quickly we argue, we bicker, and it takes very little to set the entire house on fire. The key to a successful marriage is the love, is the bond, is the connection in the marriage. And I'd like to share with you an interesting observation. John Gottman is a marriage researcher. He's written quite a number of books, but interestingly enough, he has a study. He can tell with 94% accuracy whether a couple will be divorced within 5 years or not. And he explains his system. He brings them into his lab, he sits them into two chairs facing each other, and he asks them to discuss 3 different topics. One he calls a mutual pleasing topic, something they both like to talk about. One, a neutral topic. And the third is what he calls a flashpoint, something that they typically argue about. But he explains what he's doing. He monitors everything, their respiration, their blood rate. He puts special monitors on them. He videotapes the entire conversation. And he explains, he looks afterwards for one sign, and that's contempt. Now, contempt is not anger. It's a sort of rolling of the eyes. And he says if he sees one sign of contempt without 5 positive signs opposite that, that couple is headed for deep trouble. Why? Because the essence of a successful marriage is the love. And contempt is the opposite. If there's love in the marriage, if there's a connection, if there's a bond, everything is good. Okay, he's a good guy with a flaw, but he's a good guy. If there isn't love in the marriage, then very quickly he's a loser, and everything he did wrong, and the one thing he ever did right was for the wrong reason. And contempt is the sign he looks for. You see, my friends, Hollywood got it right. Hollywood got it 100% right. You see, in the world of Hollywood, we fall in love and we get married. We fall out of love and we get unmarried. Hollywood got it 100% right, but they got it backwards. You see, in the world that we live in, we don't get married for love. I marry this person because I believe that this is the person who is the right person for me. I believe that this is the one that Hashem determined for me. The criteria for making a decision is this the right one? And love has nothing to do with that decision. However, once you get married, if there isn't a vibrant, powerful bond of love in your marriage, if you're not constantly fostering it, you're not constantly increasing it, not constantly working on it, and then in a very short time you're going to be distant, you're going to be apart, you're going to be bickering and fighting, and forget about it. And I believe that's the answer to these two Rashis. Answer number one is that Shalom Bayis is holy. Shalom Bayis is so holy that Hashem says, I don't want Avram Avinu to hear the slightest criticism from his wife. They have the near perfect marriage, says the Marsha. In the course of history, there never was a bond like that. Hashem says, I don't want the slightest scratch. Avram Avinu would not have gone to pieces, he would not have broken up, but it would have made a slight, tiny scratch. Hashem says, it's worthy for me, the creator of the heavens and earth, to be Mashana, to lie, because Shalom Bayis is that holy. But the second lesson is equally important, and that is, why did the Malachim feel they had to make her more beloved in his eyes? And because love requires work. The Malachim felt, you gave us something, you gave us food, you gave us drink, we want to give you back. We want to increase the love in your marriage, as great as it is. 99.9%, there's more that can be added, and that is a huge yesod. The love in the marriage is the essence of the marriage, and it's either going down or going up, but you constantly have to work on it. And gentlemen, this is the concept. Love is the glue of a marriage. For most guys don't really need, if you'd ask the average guy, do you need your wife to love you? It's okay, I would like it, it'd be nice. But most guys are not going to fall apart. But I guarantee you, your wife will. And love is the glue to marriage. By the way, it works both ways as well. A man typically needs it as well. But one thing for sure, if your wife doesn't feel that you love her, forget about it. Okay, and now we're ready for the phone call. I get the phone call. It's not an unusual phone call. At least I get them pretty often. And the phone call sounds something like this. Oh, Rabbi Shafier, thank you for taking the call. Sure, how could I help? Well, it's my husband. Okay, what's the problem? Well, he's a good guy, he learns, he davens, he's responsible, he takes care of the kids, has a good job. I say, so far it sounds pretty good. What's the problem? The problem is, I don't love him. So I say, okay, how long are you married? 10 years. How many kids? 5 kids. Okay, so gentlemen, what do you do? What do you do when the woman calls up and says she's married for 10 years, 5 kids, and she doesn't love her husband? A good guy. He's responsible, he learns, helps around the house, everything's good. But she doesn't love him. What do you say? So I say what I always say to women when they ask me that, when they bring me that dilemma. I said to her, madam, tell me this. Last month, how many times did you and your husband go out? Answer is, we didn't. Okay. The month before that, how many times did you go out? When I say go out, I don't mean to a chasana, to bar mitzvah, to your mother-in-law. I mean, how many times did you and your husband go out to bond, to connect, to spend time together as a couple? Answers, we didn't. The month before that, how many times? We didn't. Month before that, how many times? By about 8 or 9, I stop and then I say, okay, do you understand? You're like 2 ships passing in the night. If you're not going to bond, if you're not going to connect, you can be perfectly aligned in life goals. You could want to bring up the children in exactly the same way. Everything could be perfect, but if there isn't a constant working on the bond, the connection in the marriage, then very shortly you're going to be distant, you're going to be toast. Now, gentlemen, let me be very blunt. That conversation is what I call one of the biggest, and maybe the biggest, of the 10 really dumb mistakes that very smart couples make. Not working on the love in the marriage. But that conversation is held in the wrong direction. You see, invariably it's a woman who calls me, and I tell her she has to work on the marriage, but she's willing and wanting to. The problem is, he isn't doing his job. And gentlemen, let me make it as clear as day. If a woman doesn't feel that she's loved, she's going to express her feelings in different ways. And women have no shortage of creativity. Some cry, some fall faint, some complain, some carp, some pout. You'll find unending manners and methods of women to express their displeasure. However, one thing I guarantee, she will be fundamentally very, very unhappy. And gentlemen, this one is in your lap. This is 100% you. It is your responsibility to date your wife, your responsibility to buy the gifts, the love notes, the texts. It's your responsibility to romance your wife. That is a husband's role. Well, if she wanted to go out, I told her, just plan the date, let me know where to meet. You blew it, buddy. You blew it. Why? Because what you said in very clear terms is, I don't really care. And gentlemen, you have to hear this point loud and clear. Most women, I would say 95% of women in the beginning of their marriage are insecure about their husband's love. When I say the beginning of the marriage, I mean the first 30 or 35 years. And most women are insecure. Does he really love me or not? You know that the little girl with the daisy, he loves me not. I believe most women are like that. Does he love me? He did this, that proves it. If he really loved me, I cannot tell you how many times women say, if he really loved me, he would da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so let me just let you into a little secret. At the core of her essence, she needs to know that she's loved, that she's cherished. If a woman knows that, she'll be happy. But if she doesn't know it, she's going to be miserable. But here's the great chiddush. She is incredibly insecure about it. She could be secure in every other setting. She could be a public speaker. She could be a great personality. She could be a presence. When it comes to a husband's love, women are insecure. Women crave the relationship. They desperately need the relationship. And they need to know that they're cherished, that they're loved. And gentlemen, you have the power to the relationship. It is within your power, but it is absolutely your responsibility, and it's something you have to constantly shower with attention, constantly let her know that she's number one, constantly let her know that she's cherished. And I want to share with you a great yesod. Would you like to know how to build a relationship? From your end, this is, I would say, I don't know real numbers, 70%, maybe 80% of the work. If you could just let your wife know that you love her, over and over and over in word, deed, and action, you will be a very happy individual because she's going to be happy and you're going to be happy. This won't cure all of the issues of marriage. There'll still be stuff, but your marriage will be secure. The relationship will be beautiful. Now, there are many tools that bond. I'm mentioning one specific, romantic love. That's your responsibility. There are quite a number, and hopefully during these sessions we'll go through more of them. If not, in the book you'll see there's attraction, infatuation, romantic love, physical intimacy, respect, appreciation, friendship. These are all tools that bond, but gentlemen, this one is yours. Romantic love. Romantic love means the date night, the gifts, the notes, the cards, the texting a number of times during the day. It's telling your wife in word, deed, and action that she is number one, that she's cherished. And maybe you'll think I'm making this up. Maybe you'll say this is a modern concept. Rabbi Shafier has become a modern... Okay, I don't think so at all. But I'd like to show you how ancient it is. Let's look at a pasuk in Chumash. Ki yikach ish isha. When a man gets married, what does he do? Lo yetze letzava. For 1 year, he's putter from all communal obligations. Why is he putter? The simach es ishto. That year, he should spend the year the simach es ishto esha lakach. Make his wife happy. Now the problem with that pasuk is the simach es ishto means make her happy. Make his wife happy. And that's a rather strange expression. He should make her happy. But not only that, Rashi on the pasuk says, what does the simach mean? Yisameach es ishto. Says Rashi, make no mistake. It's not allegorical, it's not metaphorical, it's literal. His focus during that year should be to make her happy. Now, gentlemen, I want to ask you a question. Isn't that strange? Isn't it odd? If you want to tell a man, work on shalom bayis, there are many, many things to work on. Be responsible, be neat, be clean, take care of finances, make sure budget. There are many, many things to work on. Why is the Torah harping on this? The one thing he should do, take off a year to make his wife happy. Why is that such a big deal? Why is it? And Rashi tells you, make no mistake, yisameach, make her happy. Why is that such a big deal? And why should he make his wife happy? Would you like to know the answer to this? Because when a husband focuses on this, he asks himself, what could I do to make her happy? How could I please her? How could I make her happy? What she sees is that in word, deeds, and action, he cherishes her. When he focuses on what will make her happy, what he's showing her is that she is number one. He's showing her in very clear terms. He values her. He considers her important. When a woman knows that she is the first priority of her husband, she's happy. And gentlemen, this is the punchline. If you could get this one line and just put it into your brain, just burn it into your brain. If your wife knows that he cherishes me, life is sweet. If she doesn't know it, forget. Well, I told her under the chuppah, and I told her during the first year twice. Yeah, try that one, emphasize. You know, the guy who gets married, he asked his grandfather, how are you still so happy? Well, I told my wife under the chuppah that I married, and I told her if I ever change my mind about it, whether I love her or not, I'll let her know. I don't know if it worked 60 years ago, but I can tell you this. Try it today, and you're going to be in very, very desperate straits. You have to tell your wife in word, deed, and action again and 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 again a bunch more times, and she's still not going to really believe it for the first 30 or 35 years, but then in Mitzvah Hashem it gets better. But gentlemen, I'm only saying that half facetiously because there's an insecurity with a woman. You see, women are different than men. She craves a relationship. She needs a relationship. Look at little girls. Little girls value little girls. The biggest torture to a little girl is social isolation. If she has to sit at recess alone, at the lunch table, if she sits alone, it's Gehenna. Most guys, they're like friends. If buddies don't, okay, whatever, I'll eat alone, I'll play with somebody else, whatever. To a girl, her social network is everything. To a girl, her friendships are the definition of herself. And when your wife gets married, what she's expecting is her best friend to be there, her lover, and she's expecting to know that he cherishes her, and she's going to be incredibly insecure. You have to let her know that again and again and again. And gentlemen, if you think again, these are my words, let's listen to the Stipe Lagon. The Stipe Lagon writes in an Igeris. He wrote in an Igeris, it's very well worth reading. I loosely translated here. The main hope of a woman in her world is to have a husband who loves her. When she sees that this isn't so, it crushes her spirit and can be close to Pikuach Nefesh. He wrote that Igeris to a man who wrote a Shaila to the Stipe Lagon. And the man wanted to be very, very machmir when it comes to tashmish, when it comes to physical intimacy. He wanted to be very quick about it and just, 1, 2, 3, be over, because he didn't want to be involved in gashmias. And the Stipler wrote a powerful, damning letter. How dare you do that? How dare you take away from your wife's her needs? How dare you put your needs, what you call your kedusha, before your wife's needs? You have to meet her needs, and more than anything, you have to let her know that she's beloved. You have to know that she loves her. There's an entire way that a man has to approach intimacy, and maybe we'll do a session on it. But more than anything, a woman has to know again and again that he loves her. And if she doesn't know that, if she doesn't know that he cherishes me, life will be very, very rough. And I think this is a very, very big yesod. And I hope I'm not spending too much time on it, because generally, you see, if you get this part right, life is great. Everything else is important. We're going to discuss gender difference. We're going to discuss techniques. We're going to discuss how to apologize. We're going to discuss how to communicate. These things are all important, but this is your number one role. Your number one job of a husband is to romance his wife. If you do this, everything else is easy. If you don't do this, forget everything else. And this yesod, I can't say it again and again and again enough, because you see, everyone knows this, everyone understands this, and it's easy. And then you get married, and everyone forgets it. Shana Rishona, they go out, and then you forget about it. And gentlemen, I cannot tell you how many times a couple will come to me, and I ask a guy the question, do you go out? No. So do me a favor, please, take her out, write her cards, buy her flowers. Life will be great. They're miserable. They're really miserable. And he listens, and he leaves, and he calls me back a month later. How are things? Terrible, horrible. How many times did you go out? We didn't. How many gifts did you buy? None. How many cards did you buy? None. Why? Well, because I'm working on the main things in the marriage. Nar du bist. Do you understand the essence of the marriage? The glue is the love. And if your wife doesn't feel that you cherish her, you are going to be a miserable couple. she will certainly be miserable. She's by default going to make you miserable, and you two are going to be in very, very great straits. So, gentlemen, here's the rule. Mini vacations, gifts, notes, text during the day, it's all the things that a couple in love need to be doing. It is your responsibility. You're the one who plans the date. You're the one who buys the gifts. You're the one who buys the cards. You're the one who figures out what her needs are, and you meet them. But she didn't buy me a single card my entire marriage. Gentlemen, I am Baruch Hashem married now 36 years. I love my wife. My wife loves me. Do you know how many cards she bought me in our marriage? I better be careful this tape, but I don't know, and not many. Every once in a while, every couple of years, maybe every 10 years, do you know how many cards I buy her? But why? Why is there such an imbalance? Because that's what Chazal are telling us. The husband's responsible for the romance in the marriage. The husband's responsible to let his wife know in word, deed, and action that he cherishes her. And when she knows that, she's filled, she's happy, life is beautiful. If she doesn't know it, she's going to be very miserable. And gentlemen, this part of the marriage is very, very simple and very easy. Matzah or motze, it's often your choice. And often it's this nakuda. Now, if you're a chassan now, you're going to say, well, of course I'm going to do this. And of course it's easy. And of course you're going to forget. So I want to just caution you and caution you and caution you again. And this is not about when you're in the getting married stage. And it's not about Shana Rishona. This is a part of a successful marriage. Date night once a week. Let me say that again. Date night once a week. Not once a Shemitah. Not once a Yovel. Once a week. You take your wife out. But you plan the date. You plan the date. If you need ideas, send me, I'll put on the chat, have an entire date night primer. But it's your responsibility to romance your wife. Included in that is date night. Included in that is mini vacations. Doesn't have to be luxurious. Doesn't have to be the Waldorf Astoria. But every 3-4 months, you and your wife, you take a hotel, you go away, you get away from the busyness, and you reconnect, rekindle the bond. You make sure that she knows she loves you. Gentlemen, this yesod is the essence of a successful marriage. Hashem wants us to be happy, and Hashem gave us a formula, but you got to follow the formula. I think we see a tremendous concept from these two Rashis. The reason why the Malachim said, Ayeh Sarah, Avram and Sarah had the near perfect marriage, but there's more that can be added. Because the essence, the glue of a marriage is the love. The love has to always be increasing, or it's decreasing. That's just the Metzias. And the reason Hashem was Mishana, why did Hashem say, Sarah said that she is too old? Because it would have made the slightest, almost indelible scratch. You wouldn't have even noticed it. But it would have made a tiny, tiny scratch. Hashem says it's worthy for me to lie rather than there be the tiniest, slightest mar in a near perfect marriage. Shalom Bayis is holy. The essence of a successful marriage is the love, but you have to work on it, have to constantly foster it, constantly build it, and that is the success of a marriage. And this part, my friends, is very easy to do. There are a lot of other parts that we're going to get involved in the next series that are much more difficult. We're going to do 5, maybe 6 parts, and we're going to get involved in a lot of things that are much. This one is so simple. All you have to do is make sure you do it, and it's 80% of the battle, certainly from a guy's side. 80% of your work is to romance your wife. And I want to close this segment with a story. The story is very dear to my heart because it was my Rebbe, the Rishiv Zatzal. I was a Talmud of the Chavetz Chaim Yeshiva, Rabbi Libutz Zatzal. And the Rishiva and Rebbetzin didn't have children, and we, the Talmidim of the Yeshiva, were in the house all the time. We were like the Talmidim of the Rishiva and Rebbetzin, and I got to see a marriage up front and very close. If I would share with you the reverence, respect that the Rebbetzin had for the Rishiva, it's unparalleled. But if I would share with you the reverence and respect that the Rishiva Zatzal had for the Rebbetzin, that was the equal. A bond of love, of connection, just incredible. In any case, the Rishiva was older than the Rebbetzin, and for many years he was ill, and everyone knew the inevitable. The Rishiva Zatzal would pass away, and the Rebbetzin would be left in Almana. But that's not quite what happened. The Rebbetzin took ill, and very shortly thereafter she passed away. And I heard my Rebbe get up at the Levaya for his wife and say a hesped. He said a eulogy. First he said, everything we did together. We built the yeshiva together. We went to Eretz together. Everything we did together. I didn't have to worry about my food. I didn't have to worry about my medicine. Everything we did together. He must have said that expression, everything we did together, 12, maybe 14 times. And then he said these words, I said a hesped, I said a eulogy for my father. I said a hesped for my mother. I cannot say a hesped for my wife. Saying a hesped for my wife is like saying a hesped for myself. I can't do it. And he sat down. And with those words, he defined the Torah marriage. One unit, bonded, connected. The bond of love and respect, and friendship and attachment, that is the essence of a successful marriage. There's a lot of work that has to happen along the way. There's a lot of growth pains. And in the best of marriages, there are going to be times when you're going to fall and scratch your knees, things said, feelings hurt, and there's going to be issues. But you keep on working on it. And you use your head. You read the 10 really dumb mistakes. You read whatever you can get your hand on to help your marriage. And you work on it. Hashem helps, and you build a beautiful marriage. But gentlemen, I have to caution you again and again. You got to do the work. I'm going to make this recommendation again. Go to the website. If you haven't read the book, and I know most of you guys did not read the book yet, read the book. Read it. I'm telling you, I learned these the hard way. I learned this because, Baruch Hashem, again, I'm married 36 years, Baruch Hashem, successfully. But it's because I dealt with hundreds and hundreds of couples. And when you see couple after couple coming in and you say, what are they thinking? And my jaw would drop. And I say, there's no way in the world they can recognize the damage they're doing to each other and to their marriage. What are they thinking? And when you see couple after couple doing the same really dumb things, and you realize they're really smart people, you write a book. Now, because it's the 21st century, and many people under 30 cannot read any longer, you can get the video book. The video book, as I mentioned earlier, is exactly, I took the essence of the book, but it's all of the techniques, all of the concepts, and it's in video format. You open it up and it plays. It's cute. It's got the little video. It plays. Does it play now? It should play. Yeah, there it goes. Yeah, we're starting the first video.
This is the tale of Shana and Benzi.
It's animated. Watch this. I love this part.
Shana and Benzi are an all-American couple, both bright,
Give me 1
talented,
second.
and successful. Both brought up in good homes, both confident
I love
and
this.
goal-oriented, and both a bit surprised with what marriage has brought them.
Anyway, go to the shmuz.com, THESHMUZ.com. Please avail yourself of it. It's not the only book on marriage, but it's a book, or the video book. But the key is to work on it. Please join us for future sessions.